People don't know what we're doing. People don't know why we're doing it. Sometimes it scares them when they see it. Sometimes it makes them angry. And some people admire it. Most people are stuck inside. They're stuck on machines. And they've seen parkour, or they think they have, on The Office or on American Ninja Warrior, but they have no idea what we're doing or why we're doing it. And now our kids get more hurt, our adults get more sick, and our communities grow farther and farther apart. And our city infrastructure is fundamentally designed to stop us from solving the problem. In many different ways, we fall. Frank Nelson was 1 year old when he fell off the top of a 12-foot tall slide and sustained permanent brain damage. Now, eventually, the park system of Chicago was sued and had to pay out $9.5 million. Here in the early 70s, there weren't a lot of regulations for parks and public play spaces to abide by. Theodore Briggs Sweeney was the safety consultant for John Carroll University, and she championed the notion that the people who built these parks were responsible for the injuries sustained in them. After a number of successful lawsuits, the Consumer Product Safety Commission issued a handbook for public playground safety in 1981. Eventually, other organizations came out with other handbooks, and soon, these books were in the hands of park departments and insurance companies and school boards. Now, armed with the ability to abide by these handbooks, these organizations were far more protected under the law and in a much better situation. The children, however, were not. This is Mrs. Tadrowski. She was first school. She moved back to London in 2015 and said, wow, there are really scary parks here now with nails and saws and pliers. So she looked into it. She spied on 18,000 people who went to American and London parks and found that people were going to London parks 55% more often than American ones, and that the most popular features in these parks were exactly the ones that Americans started ditching in the early 70s, there at the beginning of our childhood obesity epidemic. Someone else saw this trend in their city. His name was Carl Theodor Sorensen, and he found that kids weren't playing in the parks, and that they were playing in the city, and that city was Copenhagen, Denmark, and that it was 1942. It was problematic. When Sorensen set out to solve this problem, he implemented 6 key components of risk: heights, speed, tools, rough and tumble play, the ability to become lost, and dangerous elements. The notion being that if you gave a child a risk, they would respond cautiously and find a new way to navigate the dangerous situation. But if you created this overly predictable, safe environment, boredom would cause the child to seek out riskier play, making these London adventure parks statistically safer than our typical American ones. Now, eventually, modern psychologists would find another reason why this approach to play was so much more effective, dubbing it non-directive play. Non-directive play is a tool used to help reduce anxiety in children. It's really effective. The child is given open freedom to play with abstract tools without any specific goals or objectives. Now, despite how effective it is, our play areas still fail to reflect this theme, leaving our children with specific goal-oriented structures. People love to play, and they love non-directive play, something that London and Copenhagen found out decades later. And now, this is what parks look like in London and Copenhagen. These parks have grown a lot since Sorensen's observation in the early 40s, and so have the people who occupy them. Adults in our mainstream society don't typically play, despite the fact that there is a strong consensus that play in adults is vital. It improves brain function and reduces stress by stimulating our brain in a way that it's been designed to. It's then no surprise that the communities that had the first taste of these adventure playgrounds became host to a larger community, taking part in a grand-scale, free-form activity called parkour. The definition of parkour is complicated, and there's an incredible amount of nuance when it comes to what parkour athletes are trying to do, how they're trying to do it, and what it looks like when they do. Sport began as a recreational activity adapted from a French military program. These first practicing athletes advocated strong intrinsic values in parkour. They wanted to be strong, to be useful, and to be able to adapt to overcome any obstacle that came their way. From there, it hit the big screen and captured a young audience that quickly took on their own definition of what it meant to do parkour. As people decided to add flips, tricks, and spins from other disciplines that they had practiced, a general consensus that the term free running was to refer to the stylistic component of parkour, and that parkour was meant to refer to the skills best used in the navigation of an area was reached. Since then, parkour has been tuned into categories of speed, skill, style, and endurance, with a strong narrative of being well-rounded, present in the community. With the dynamic and risky nature of parkour, it's then no surprise that this community was met with the same pushback that confronted the risk-filled adventure playgrounds. For whatever reason, this community of people who like to run, jump, and flip has decided to band together whenever possible. Driven by this strength, this community was able to respond to this pushback with the advent of the parkour gym. These gyms host competitions, where athletes compete in categories labeled speed, skill, and style. They'll travel from all across the world to meet up with longtime friends, meet new people, and help join in a communal effort to further explore their own physical capabilities. But while these athletes meet in building and warehouse-like locations, they understand the true value of being outdoors. We love training outside. Doing this, however, is really going to piss some people off. Children have been assaulted with bats in London. They've been attacked on rooftops in Asia. And here in Los Angeles, we've had our own fair share of scuffles. It's only a matter of time before parkour takes over the youth. And as more and more people find out what parkour actually is, they'll insist upon it. And property owners will continue to spend millions and millions of dollars on equipment designed to keep athletes off of their property. But it won't work. One of the central themes of parkour is the ability to adapt to overcome. You can see the parkour team store taking on the challenge of what would be an otherwise rather boring wall, once the property owner affixed the top of it with rolling spikes. Alternatively, we can see a society that steps away from risk-reducing policy and begins to arm its population with the ability to assess danger and risk. These problems will continue to get worse if we don't have a communal movement towards a better way of living, and bureaucratic band-aid solutions will and have exacerbated them. We have the information to drive forward, but for whatever reason, we remain largely stuck in park.
Everybody should be doing parkour all of the time, for sure.
The term free running was used providing children and people, because children aren't people. These parks have grown a lot since Sorensen was up. So, I won't stumble.
You want to do it again?
We'll double it up. You want to unite? You want to two?
I'll do it a whole room.
Thank you. I truly appreciate your presence here. You've been a ball. You've been you've been a ball. You've been a festival. You've been what's the thing besides a ball?